Welcome back to The Red Thread. This is Killian.
And this is Melanie.
Today we're continuing our series, What We Talk About When We Talk About Socialism, where we discuss key definitions about socialism, explore the challenges we face in the current stage of capitalism, and respond to the myths and misconceptions that capitalists use to insist that there are no alternatives, or that fighting for a free society free from exploitation and oppression isn't worth it.
So far on the Red Thread, we've talked a bit about wealth inequality and the extreme exploitation that has made Amazon and Jeff Bezos so successful. And today we're diving deeper into how that exploitive relationship is the blueprint for the whole capitalist system and also for its destruction.
Wealth wasn't created by the handful of billionaires who hoard most of it now. Our homes, roads, schools, and hospitals were all built by workers. If you like seeing movies or concerts, and watching TV and streaming, well, we have our fellow workers to thank for all that too. Shout out to SAG-AFTRA and WGA workers. Every step of food production, from when the seeds are planted to when a meal is on your plate, is carried out by workers, many of them immigrants.
Exactly. I work at a museum in New York City, which has a lot of examples related to this, because one thing we spend a lot of time doing at work is giving undeserved credit to billionaire philanthropists in quotes, for powering our museum, for making it run basically through their donations. But the idea that our museum runs because of a handful of unbelievably wealthy elites is a myth and an insult. We'll break down why in this episode, but the bottom line is that capitalists don't give to society. They are not generous. They take. They legally steal the time, energy, and talent of workers, giving us just enough to get by. And then they wash the blood and slime off themselves at arts and cultural institutions like the one that I work at.
And one way capitalists like to cover for this is using the idea of meritocracy, that success is all about individual effort, and that if you're competitive or even a little selfish, it's actually a good thing because it drives innovation. We Googled the term meritocracy for this, and the example sentence that Google provides is kind of fitting for what we're talking about here. It says, Britain is a meritocracy, and everyone with skill and imagination may aspire to reach the highest level. What a joke.
So yeah, according to the dictionary, anyone can join the winner's circle if they just work hard enough. This also helps legitimize inequality because it makes it seem like successful capitalists earned or deserve all their wealth, because if we live in a meritocracy, then they must have achieved it because they're more smart and talented than most people. But I know that's BS because my boss is neither smart nor talented.
Same here. And yet capitalism tells us that the bosses are the ones who innovate, who invent, who create products or services that benefit society. And their profits are seen as the reward for their hard work. The unfathomably rich owners of massive corporations are seen as the key contributors to society, because they create jobs and pay their workers.
And yeah, I would say that's a pretty twisted version of the story. Because if wages are barely enough to cover for food and housing, then are those wages really paying workers what they deserve? And also, do our bosses actually do any of the labor that created the wealth that they think is theirs? For example, has Elon Musk ever assembled a Tesla? No, he has not. Did the Carnegies or the Vanderbilts ever actually mine or build railroads? Also, no. The fact of the matter is that the wealth of a capitalist doesn't come from some magical talent or hard work or incredible foresight. Instead, wealth is a product of social effort. Workers in warehouses, factories, offices, farms, and all other types of workplaces, all of us contribute our skills and our energy to create all these things that we rely on.
Think about it. Every good and service you use, from the food on your table to the apps on your phone, is produced by millions of people working together. Whether it's working on an assembly line in an auto plant, driving a bus, picking produce in the fields, or building houses, we are the ones generating value. And our bosses are the ones pocketing it and pretending like they're the ones who did a whole bunch of work. This process is nothing less than legalized theft.
Yeah, exactly, because the profits are all made possible by paying workers just enough to survive while pocketing the difference. The secret that keeps capitalism running smoothly is that workers actually create way more value than they get paid for. Every single day we're working to produce goods and services, but the wages we take home barely cover what we need to keep coming back the next day and the next day and the next day. This is why I don't show love to any of the, quote, philanthropists that donate to the museum I work at, because all their money is just wealth they accumulated off the backs of workers.
And it's not just about wages being too low. It's also about how capitalists steal the innovations, efforts, and collective labor that come from the public sector. Take the COVID vaccines, for example. All the scientists, researchers, and workers from around the world, many of them working in public institutions funded by taxpayer money, helped create these life-saving vaccines. And who reaped the rewards? Big pharmaceutical companies. They patented the vaccines and saw their profits grow even faster than the spread of the virus, while the people who did the hard work didn't see nearly the same rewards.
Yeah, these kinds of effects also undermine the idea that competition in capitalism is some kind of natural force that drives innovation. The market might start with competition on like a minuscule level, but as small businesses turn into big ones and then they turn into global corporations, we don't see innovation or competition that's supposed to happen in theory, and instead we see monopolies and imperialist plunder.
So why does this keep happening? It all comes down to one thing. The vast majority of people only have one commodity to sell to survive: their labor. In capitalism, every time we work, we're selling what Marx called our labor power. Workers don't own the factories, the land, or the tools to produce goods. They only own their ability to work. That's why they're paid wages, not to reflect the full value of what they produce, but just enough to keep them coming back to work the next day.
This separation of workers from the means of production is actually something that capitalism created by violently taking away the ability of people to provide for themselves so that they'd have to depend on wage labor to survive.
And that's why defenders of capitalism are so obsessed with private property. They're trying to protect the system that keeps most people without any real ownership. They don't want us to realize that capitalism is built on this massive imbalance, where the majority of people don't own anything, while the owners have the power to decide what gets produced, how, and for whom.
But the truth is, workers don't need bosses to make things happen. In fact, history has shown us that we, the workers, can organize ourselves through cooperatives, mutual aid, and collective action, and still produce things that benefit everyone. Look at also the Russian Revolution, for example, in which the workers organized democratically in Soviets, overthrew their entire government, and replaced it with a workers' government that immediately did things like legalize abortion and divorce, overturn laws criminalizing being gay, and launched a literacy program that reached uneducated workers and rural farmers alike.
So what if we could democratically organize production? Instead of a few people profiting off of everyone else's work, we could plan a society's resources to meet everyone's needs. Imagine a world where instead of throwing away perfectly good products just because they can't be sold, like the 40% of food in the United States that gets wasted every year, we direct those resources where they're actually needed. We could reduce work hours, create more leisure time, and use technology to make life easier for everyone. And we could do all this without destroying the planet in the process.
In the end, capitalism is the thing that limits our potential as a society. It reduces human creativity, cooperation, and innovation to nothing more than a race for profit. But as much as capitalism seems to bring out the worst in people and imposes its perverse logic onto all aspects of our lives, including love, which we have an episode about, it is also true that we continue to have solidarity and cooperation and collective power amongst ourselves. We care for our loved ones and our coworkers, and often show solidarity to people that we don't even know.
And as we've talked about before, and will continue to talk about, we struggle and fight. Because as the people who create all the wealth in society, we should also be the ones to control it.
So, as we wrap up, we would love to hear your thoughts. How do you see the relationship between labor and wealth in your own life? And what changes do you think are needed to create a fairer system? Reach out to us on social media at The Red Thread Pod.
Thank you for joining us on The Red Thread. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Until next time, keep questioning, keep organizing, and keep fighting for socialism.